We're back with another episode of ALANUI MELE, Hawaiʻi Hip-Hop History on PBS Hawaii. I'm your host, Kavit the Catalyst. And on this one, we got East 3. I just went straight into it because I'm like, there's so much history, so much knowledge that you got, and just getting you here. And, you know, it's hard for me to even get any writers. Shout out to Prime and Too Shy. But I'm like, I hit up so many people, like, hey, you want to come on? Everybody's like, I get it, though. I totally get it. You know what I mean? But it's always good to get a lot of the OG writers to kind of set the roots of the podcast. But East, how you doing? Thanks for coming to PBS Hawaii on ALANUI MELE.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. Yeah, it's going to be good to be able to give everyone their flowers and
Definitely.
Break down a little bit of what I did too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, real quick, you just came from Kauai, right?
Yep.
What were you doing there?
So we're doing a impaired driving prevention mural program called Drive with Aloha.
Okay.
And that was our 10th mural.
Oh, wow.
And our third county that we completed.
So this is statewide.
Yeah, statewide. And then we're going back to Ka'u next, and then we're going to go to Maui, and that completes the whole 4 counties.
And is this for Keep It Flowing, or is this totally separate? It's all the same.
This is for Keep It Flowing, and this is in partnership with the Department of Transportation.
What is anything you could share with us, some stories or anything that, people you met along the way doing these murals?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I want to share is that we need to be able to create better policies and laws for the people who have lost a loved one because of impaired driving. A lot of them are the people who actually hit the victims' families. They only serve like anywhere from 6 months to 2 years on average.
What?
On average. It's an injustice. We have to do better on prevention as well as the judicial system.
Yeah.
I'm also advocating in legislation for different coalitions that I work with. So different times than just holding a spray can.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, speaking of holding a spray can, let's rewind then all the way back to early. So are you from Hawaii or you moved to Hawaii? What is your historic background with Hawaii?
I was born in San Francisco.
Okay.
And we moved here after we went to Japan. So I came here about 5.5 years old. So I was practically raised here.
Of course,
And went on checkers and pogo.
What? Explain to people what checkers and pogo.
Oh, okay. That's showing my age now. But it was a TV show, a local TV show. And they would have all the local kids come in and they would have games and prizes. Everyone used to look forward to being able to put their hand in the penny jar and grab as much as you can. And
how many pennies did you grab?
Oh, man, I don't know, but I tried to grab as much as I could. And, I actually won my first turntables from checkers and pogo.
Wait, they had turntables as a prize?
Yeah. They had the whole 2 little speakers and the turntable and the cover of the turntable. It wasn't a 1200.
Okay, yeah.
I wish it was, but it was just a regular turntable, and I used to listen to all kinds of.
That's insane. So that was like 1980. What year is that? You think?
I like to say 70, like in the 78, 79. Yeah, I was way my
right.
9 years old.
So you weren't even into hip hop back then. You just wanted the turntables.
Yeah,
not knowing that literally would.
I think if I really think back to it, I was probably 6 or 7 when it happened, because by the time I was 9, I remember clearly I was already fishing. That was my passion.
Yeah,
still is.
Yeah. Like fishing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's that for Hawaii Islands, that's like the 6th element.
Yeah. Fishing.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wish I got into even more so, because it's pretty relaxing.
Oh, yeah. And
therapeutic.
Sustainable, too.
Oh, 100% sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved to Hawaii. So what is your first experience with maybe not, well, back then, this is something I've always come across with doing this podcast, that there was no hip-hop. Hip-hop was not a term back in the 70s. In Hawaii, it was you popped, you locked, right? You were dancing, right? The elements didn't really, meld together till a little later, So I would say hip hop. Then I catch myself. It's like, oh no, what element did you kind of come across first?
So I can say that, as far as a locking scene, that was before my time.
Yeah.
That was completely before. But as far as like the popping side, the first exposure to that was like my neighbors. They were wearing baggy pants. And they were listening to Zapp and Roger, and it's like my friend Jacob was like,
what area was this?
This was on
up?
Bingham Street.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like now it's a parking lot.
Right.
Kapilani Hospital. But
oh, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so basically I went to Jacob's house and I seen the older brothers and I was like, what are you guys doing? And then they're listening and they're doing some kind of robotic thing. And I was like, what is this? And I'm like thinking to myself, like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first exposure to popping.
Yeah.
I still didn't grasp what it was, but they said that they were going to go challenge some people. So I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what that means.
Right.
Yeah. So that was not like, that wasn't even I would consider my intro to hip hop.
Right.
Yeah. That was just more the exposure to one dance form.
Right. That kind of bought a light bulb and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But
Yeah.
you didn't feel like to take a part of it yet. It was just more like intriguing as a young kid growing up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Oh, popping. Cool. So when did, what was the next element or what was the next phase of that kind of brought you into?
So being that my mom was a fashion designer.
Okay.
She used to always draw. So I was already drawing.
Wow.
So that already kind of came natural to me. And watching her draw all of these like fashion mock-ups.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, these are cool. Of course I didn't do that. I was drawing cartoon characters.
Right.
And when I first got exposed to, I would say, breaking actually came first.
Right.
And I went to Washington Intermediate.
Yeah, it was right down the street.
Yeah, so in my like 7th grade year, I was like, what is this guy doing laying on the ground, spinning in a circle? I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what it was.
Right. Do you remember who that was at all?
No, it was, I think it was, from my recollection, I think it was like a teacher. Yeah, because, he was young.
Right.
He just went on the grass and he just started doing what now is, shoulder roll.
Right. On the grass. That's Hawaii for you, bro.
I was like,
shoulder rolls on the grass.
Like, wow, what is that? So a lot of this stuff was like, to me, like, I would consider myself to have been a sheltered child.
Yeah.
So fishing was my outlet. That was my interest. And then I started to see more and more. It started to become more and more prevalent, more and more like, oh, man. And then for the little amount of exposure we got, then we got to see what was on, I believe it was PBS, Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so these kinds of things just started to just blow my mind. And I was like, okay, this might be something I can do.
Yeah.
Because I like doing art.
Right. Sean Speedy Lopez, who I had on ALANUI MELE, he said PBS showed Star Wars. And that's where he grew up in Kalihi, like literally went to Farrington. He's always an outlier. He said he was at every event, but he's just kind of, the guy chilling in the back. But he said his first real integration was boom, Star Wars on PBS. Yeah. And it's funny, when I heard that, I actually tried to pitch to PBS. I was like, hey, could we play Star Wars again? And like, oh, can't do that anymore because licensing, you know how that works. Yeah. But I was like, if PBS Hawaii could play Star Wars as like ALANUI MELE presents, and maybe have like a thing after, like a forum. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But anyway, yeah. So you're not the first one that said that PBS played Star Wars. So you've seen Star Wars and you're like, I can do that.
Yeah, except without the train.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just the exposure to the culture and as a whole, was just like exciting. It was like, whoa, this energy about it is something I want to gravitate to. Don't know why. Don't know how I'm gonna approach this, but I was like, wow, it's kids doing this somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
I had no understanding of it. Just
you knew nobody either.
No,
that did it.
Nobody. And so I would say my developmental years were a little bit later.
Right,
So
right.
I would say like by the time I was late 14, that's when I started to really like understand.
Right, right,
And
right.
I was actually breaking back then.
Okay.
Because that breaking for me came first.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And alongside with all the little clips of everything, I would always see, oh, there's artwork in the background too.
Right, right, right,
I
right.
didn't know what it was called. I was just like, oh, this is cool. So, I remember, and I don't count this, but I remember trying to mimic a video that I saw, and I don't remember what it was, but somebody was spraying in the background,
Okay.
and everyone was breaking. So, not gonna say where, I'm not gonna say when, but I just
In Hawaii, or
yeah,
oh
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and we at that time we didn't think nothing was wrong, so I was
Yeah.
spraying on a wall, and my friends are breaking. And
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is kind of cool,
Right, right, right.
not realizing there was this or that about it.
Yeah.
But it had started definitely with breaking, and my interest was breaking, but I wasn't connected to all the scene yet.
Right, 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 right.
That was when someone said, "Hey, you should go to Silly's."
Okay.
So I went by myself.
Right, right.
The curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
around my circle was really too into that. Yeah. So
Nobody at Washington Intermediate, or is this already high school, or being freshman year, or like in between maybe that 8th, 9th grade?
Yeah. So 14 is when it really started to take
Right.
the drive. So 14, at 14, by the later part of me being 14, like before it turned into the next year, I was already really developed it into it. I was trying to do shoulder rolls and stuff like that.
Right, right, right.
And really got into it. And that's when I found out, that there's this place called Silly's.
Right.
Yeah.
You went there.
Yeah, I went there by myself. And my circle, they were into it. They would be practicing with me.
Right, right.
But they're like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're not going there. We just like doing it.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a culture thing for us
Right, right.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I went to Silly's, that's when I was like, whoa, this is crazy, because they had a underage time
Right,
frame.
right,
yeah?
right, right.
And I don't remember whether it was 4 to 6 or 5 to 7.
Right.
I'm not sure, but I know that we had a 2-hour window that anyone that was under 18 could show up. Yeah.
And then who'd you meet there? Who'd you see there? Who's DJing? Like, what was your...
All I can remember are a few key points. So I remember seeing Total Control, because, the person who announced them, and I'm not even going to front like I remember who was
Right,
there.
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything. I didn't even know who James Coles was back then.
Right.
It was like a kid that went actually to a place where I was like, whoa, this is just so exciting.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I remember the name Total Control, and I know that Roy was in there, Skill Roy.
Right,
was
right,
in
right.
there. And I remember seeing the Foot Rock Bunch.
Okay.
And them saying I guess they were doing their final performance
Right, right.
before they broke up. So I remember
crazy.
seeing pivotal things like that. I remember seeing ABC
Yeah, yeah.
Breakers there, but I knew none of them.
Wow.
I was like an outsider looking in, until I went to McKinley.
Okay. And is that when you started getting more into writing?
That's when it just went into overdrive.
Right, right. And who'd you meet in McKinley?
I had Skez in my class.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just a one auto shop class.
And Skez was there.
Yeah, Skez was there. And, I guess prior to that, I would, because he used to live on the same bus line as me, and that would be kind of like the telltale story of,
Right.
if you follow the trail, it leads
Yeah.
back to the house. Yeah. So I was like, what is this Skez stuff? This is prior to high school.
Right, right,
What
right.
is this MIA? What is this FBI? What is
Yeah.
all of this?
Yeah,
yeah. And so when I went to McKinley, I got it real quick. Yeah. Because prior to Washington, I was in private school.
Okay.
So, and it was a small, like very small private school.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, so very sheltered, not knowing. Then I learned everything I needed to know when I
Real
got to
quick.
McKinley.
Public school will do that to you.
Yeah. So I got to meet like Skimpy. I got to meet Skez, and through that, and
Was Skez older or same age?
I think he was 1 year older.
Okay.
I don't know why he was in the shop, but I remember him clearly because then I connected the dots. I was like, that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was already writing. He was already doing pieces. He was already tagging, bombing, like doing the whole nine.
That's all he did in the class was just draw, and on the tables and everything else.
Right.
Yeah, so we definitely had a lot of. I had a lot of opportunity to really learn about what this was.
Right.
And even more so from the people that now I had like a community with.
Yeah.
Because before then it was kind of like friends that like to do this stuff.
Right.
And now there's like crews and everything like that I'm actually being exposed to. So
who are some other writers that you was going to school at that time in McKinley that you remember?
Nakas.
Shout out Nakas.
Yep. And Triad 3.
Right.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Skimpy for sure.
Right.
He was in MIA and FBI. And, a lot of the other ones, like for other schools, MAD, my concentration was in my first year of school was like getting to understand and really just like being amazed at all these people. I thought they were celebrities in my eyes.
I can see. Yeah, no, I can see that.
I was like, oh, that's Skimpy right there. Right. And he was doing like headspin taps.
Oh, wow.
He's a big guy back then too. Like,
see, I've never heard that name yet until now. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah. So nobody's ever mentioned him yet. That's why I'm like Skimpy. So Skimpy was a b-boy and a writer, or?
Yeah. And he was also Skez's cousin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was, what crew was he in a b-boy crew?
That I don't know. But it was more that I knew him from writing.
Writing.
Yeah. So, that part of everything was just like, for me, I was coming up.
Right.
I was the toy.
Yeah.
I was the guy who didn't really know what
Right.
was going on.
And what were you writing back then?
I was writing Break 38 because I was breaking.
What was a 38 for?
Because it rhymed.
Yeah. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's very simple, very clean.
Right.
And I just looked at it like I wanted to be involved.
Right.
But I didn't know how.
Right.
Yeah. So
Did it evolve, Break 38, into something else before you got to East?
No, but I had ridiculous names that I'm not going to mention before
That's the best. That's the best kind, though.
Yeah, it was ones that I just laugh at now. I just can't believe it.
You're like, oh, why did I even think like that?
Yeah, it was crazy.
So so at that time, where you're just kind of like your informative years coming up, meeting Skez, Skimpy, and meeting other writers from different schools, because there's only so many schools I've noticed mentioned when I've been doing this podcast. McKinley, Kai McKee, Iolani eventually became in the podcast. Kalani to some sort. Kaiser for popping and locking. Silver Lockers through Kalani. What other schools were the writers at, or the hip hop or b-boys were at, that you noticed at that time?
Well, definitely once I figured out through Skimpy, I have to give it up to Iolani.
Okay.
Iolani is, like, for me, the number one, and he will always be number one, is Animate 5.
Right.
That guy, he just went beyond what he was basically on the path to what Phase 2 had in his hip-hop book, which was like constantly elevating the styles. And he was so far beyond, and the specifics was he already understood bar structure within lettering. Okay. He understood that it needed to be consistent throughout the lettering. And that's where a lot of, people who are just starting out, they take that left turn when they should have went right.
Right.
Yeah, to create consistency
first.
Yeah.
Right.
So the foundation, right?
And where did he come from? Like, what? I mean, okay, I was shocked when Kalani Young told me Kaiser had the poppers and lockers, and he was coming from Waipahu. I was like, what, Kaiser? So when I started hearing, like, way before this, Iolani, I was like, how did Iolani even get these legendary writers? Like, what? Like, so when you met Animate, or like, what was it? Do you know his history, or like where he learned from, or do you have any, like, any insight on that?
Only in the years that I got to know him,
Right.
which was like in the 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah. Just kind of taking a time machine and going back, like I got to learn about his ideals and philosophies.
Right.
Yeah. His approach, because he has a architecture background.
Okay.
And he's very structured in what he does.
Right.
I could see why his lettering was
okay.
just so pristine.
Right.
Yeah. And I think anybody who's from that era would agree that, A5 was like.
Right. What crew was he in?
He was in MIA.
MIA. Yeah. And then who was in MIA with him?
Wiz 10, Snow 1. I don't want to out what they are now.
Yeah. I'll go. Just say the names. Yeah, I'm trying to just.
Skimpy, Pony Boy, Editor. There was just like, it's. I only know the ones that are from town.
Right.
Too
Okay.
Shy.
Right.
Too Shy. There was people that were in and out.
Yeah.
But I think those are the core.
Right.
Wiz 10.
Right.
If I didn't mention him already, Wiz 10 was definitely innovative.
Was he a Iolani guy too?
I don't know that part.
Right.
Yeah. I got to know him, but it's like at that point we were already older.
Yeah.
Because we all became one crew for just a short amount of time.
So the MIA was kind of running it at that time.
In my opinion, one person from Bomb Squad.
Okay.
And MIA.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know that one guy.
Right.
From Bomb Squad.
Right. What other? I mean, off the top of your
Snake.
head, what other crews was going on in that earlier time that you were going to McKinley?
That's worth mentioning.
I mean, you can say it worth. I mean, just mention it, because to me, like, even if it's just like on some toy stuff, I just want to know, like, what it kind of shows the going ons of that time.
I gotta say shout out to Design Madness,
Right.
DM,
Right.
yeah, Prime, Guess. I think that those guys, and Guess was also a Foot Rock Bunch. He transferred from breaking into that, so that was always like, oh man, he's taking another element. That's pretty cool. But I would say, there was so many smaller crews, like FCA. FCA was from McKinley.
Right.
I wouldn't say that they were like into piecing, but a lot of them were from Marites.
Yeah.
And the reason why I have to shout them out was one of the top guys. His name is Patrick Moga.
Okay.
And he was a football player, and I had him in two of my classes.
Right.
And all he would do is draw B-boy characters.
Oh, nice.
That made me want to quit.
Oh, what?
Yeah. And the way he drew them was so effortless.
Yeah.
And the most important point was like, he drew Run DMC, and I was like, I just don't even want to draw.
Wow.
Yeah, he was that talented. I don't know if he painted or not, but definitely, US just had, where I was where I focused on.
Right.
So, there was Speed, Sam 7, Triad. We used to roll out, and, do our thing. And I would say, as far as other writers, in that respect, like, it's hard for me to acknowledge the people. Like, there's Epic 123,
Right.
and there was a Humanist Party,
Right.
But these were more of the trending crews, that
Right. Yeah.
kind of in and out.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, like, if I'm gonna give the flowers to anybody, it'll definitely be to people who at least stuck it through for a extended amount of time. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I like that trending cruise. That comes in a lot with writing in general. Trending cruise.
I think all elements.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because some people do it because it's gonna make them popular,
Right.
And some people love love what they do.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that stick around.
Right.
Yeah.
So in those formative times, did like sketch help you develop your hand styles, or was it just coming off the top of your dome, taking in, meeting all these new writers now because it's new to you, right? You're like, oh, I finally met this guy, Animate. I met Skez, I met, Too Shy or whatever. I met Slick. So it's like, now it's like, oh, dang. Did that kind of help you form those like, teen years of East?
Yeah. So I was 100% inspired by Skez's hand style.
Okay.
And, when throughout my whole journey, past 40 years, I've never seen a hand style like that in anywhere.
Wow.
Not even in New York.
Yeah, you've traveled.
Yeah. There's a difference between the one line hand style that Hawaii created and everywhere else.
Wow.
There's no comparison. And people who do things now, they'll continue a hand style and then they'll do like a square frame around it,
right.
or they'll end it off and putting it in a circle.
Yeah.
But they never incorporated the circle or the connections the way that MIA basically did. Because Animate was also a person who had hand style, and he had the pieces.
Right.
He had both, and everyone kind of had their own approach to the one liner. That's what made, in my opinion, MIA so great.
Right.
Yeah, that they kind of cultivated that style.
Can you explain to the people that don't know what is a one-liner?
One-liner is when you put your pen when you start your pen mark and you don't take your hand off. It doesn't even to turn your wrist or anything. It's just the one continuous line.
And you were saying it's not just a box or a circle around it. They incorporated that with their name.
Yeah. So just the uniqueness of how, they created that, innovative style. You just have to see a Skez signature to be able to really appreciate it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but their signatures were like immortalized. Like people, I feel like people, they were like the jumping forward to kind of like the MSK style.
No, that's fine. Okay.
How the MSK writers from LA, they just kind of set the precedence in the 90s.
Right.
So it's the same thing. The 80s, everybody had something similar to it. And that's where my hand style is inspired by, and my connections are different than Skez's, but that took a while to, develop. Of course, I didn't have an S in the beginning, and to a K, so I can never copy his trademark connection the way that he did. But yeah, he's amazing, and I got to paint with him maybe about 4 years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he was a little reluctant to do his name. I said, don't worry, it's been a long time. But I told him, I said, look at my hand style. He goes, wow, that's just like how I would approach it.
Right. Oh, that's sick.
And he filled up a book, all these different versions of Skez. So I'm happy. I came full circle with it.
Yeah.
Because I was just a little kid in a corner, looking at his stuff in high school, So, being able to make that connection.
So where did you settle on? When did you settle on East and then East 3?
I would say East came in when right about 87. Yeah, 87, like to the tail end.
Right. You were still in high school at that time.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worry. Good.
I was listening a lot to Public Enemy.
Right.
Thanks to Size One.
Yeah. Shout out to Size.
Yeah. Size was my guru for music.
Right. Yeah.
So, check this out. This is a new thing. So as I was listening to Public Enemy, I learned a lot about ethnic pride.
Right. Yeah.
And that connected to me in a way where it was like, well, I'm Asian, but I don't have a place here. It seems like, yeah. So my name, I was like, what kind of Asian-inspired name? And I saw Asians are from the Eastern Hemisphere. So I took East.
Nice.
Yeah. And then
Because what's your ethnicity?
Japanese Chinese, yeah. So what's interesting is that later in life, I would say somewhere in the early 2000s, I felt a need and a want to pay tribute to Triad because he was actually killed by an impaired driver.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give him a tribute, and my last letter is T and the number 3. So I took the 3 at that time. Of course, things changed, but now the 3 represents balance for me. Mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
Trinity.
So, yeah.
That's dope, man. So this is still in high school, moving out there. You put in the work. You've been writing. When did you meet FaZe?
FaZe was someone that I didn't even intend to meet.
Right.
I was going to Revolution Books on King Street, and
Wait, real quick. You mentioned Size 1. Let's rewind a little bit back because when did you start linking up with Size 1? You said 87. Were you cruising with Size? Because you said that's how you kind of got to know about PE and the music, because that guy is a savant when it comes to all things, actually. Not just music. So when did you link up with Size?
So the timeline, it would be that Revolution Books and me looking for those papers is like 86.
86.
And then I connected with, I believe that DJ Jedi connected us. I believe that's how we connected.
Because Jedi went to school with Sizer. Yep.
Yeah. So Size, I remember going to his condo in Salt Lake.
Right.
And basically, I met him for the first time, and he was, very
feeling each other out.
Yeah, I was like, oh, geez, I've heard about this guy, but I never met this guy because I'm only in the McKinley area. As far as my bus line would go.
Yeah.
So, meeting him was like, oh, God. And then I remember clearly he busted out a piece of paper and he drew 3 character heads. And I was like, oh, my God. Why can't people do this? I mean, he did it with pen, too. That's what makes it disgusting,
Right.
But, then we started to hang out more. And then he was the one that actually introduced a more stricter style of bars and connections.
Wow.
So rewinding back to me looking at magazines and stuff, I came across the IGT Times.
Okay.
And I like to just address it by what FaZe created. So
right.
The International Get Hip Times.
Right.
Yeah. It was called something else before that. I'll just say International G Times.
Right.
But when FaZe took it over from Dave Chalfant, he basically transformed it into more like an awareness type of magazine, whether it's political, different issues that New York was dealing with, and also displaying a whole bunch of really dope art. So
wait, who did you take it over from?
I believe it was Dave Chalfant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he related to Henry?
Oh, no. You know what? It's not Chalfant.
Okay.
It's David Schmidlap.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I don't know where. I was thinking, oh, wow, is that a relation somehow?
Yeah. David Schmidlap.
Okay.
Yeah. And David Schmidlap was just a photographer.
Oh, wow.
So he was, they got along really well. It was like 2 people that came from different worlds.
Right.
And
you were finding this in Revolutionary Books.
Yeah, that was on King Street.
King Street, yeah.
And they would have the issues, and it was like a big, magazine.
Right.
I have it.
Yeah.
If you want
Oh,
to,
dope.
We can take a look at it.
Yeah.
But that was my first real exposure to what's current about New York.
Right.
We've seen we've seen Beach Street, we've seen Wild South Style Wars, but I've never got anything current, because we didn't have internet yet.
Right. Yeah.
So what was internet?
Yeah. What?
Yeah. So this was great because I was getting this stream into what's real and what's happening, and so I saw an address It's you know, it was a Prince Street station, and I'm not gonna say the rest of it, but uh, I just wrote him a letter, not emailed.
Right.
I wrote him a letter, handwritten letter, and I thought I was just dealing with the editor,
Right.
or somebody in there, but FaZe wrote back. Yeah, and that was our first engagement.
Wow.
He wasn't mentoring me,
Right.
but he was sharing knowledge. So that's where I kind of took it into, okay, well, this is a form of mentorship, but maybe not like, hey, you're doing your bars all wrong and, all of that stuff.
So through that one letter to Phase 2 in New York, you actually sent him some artwork for him to check out?
No, it was just like, hey, I really like your magazine.
yeah.
I just wanted to da-da-da. And then, then he started to send back letters, and then we'd go back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So letters, people, this is like, so all the young people out there, like handwritten letters you send to the post office.
Yeah.
And then they write back.
Yeah. You don't get instant gratification,
No,
everyone. You just have to wait.
You get instant anticipation of, is that person going to write back? So you guys were writing back and forth before you even met.
Yeah. Before we even met, before we even talked.
Right. And did you know the importance of Phase 2 for New York, and then in generally his influence around the world?
Only through the hip hop book.
Okay.
Yeah, that showed his evolution of style.
Right.
Like I already knew I was dealing with a master.
Yeah.
Like
You got the hip hop book now?
yeah.
Did you bust it out real quick? It'd be good to show that.
This book is written by Stephen Hagar, and it's a collectible in this day and age.
Right.
Yeah, and
Is that the first hip hop book, or no? There's ones before it.
I'd like to say that this was one of the first.
Right.
But I don't know that far back if this was actually the first. But in my eyes, this is the most informative book.
The rest is more New York graffiti, that kind of book. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I saw. This is what I fell in love with. This is what I understood before I started pen paling.
Right.
So yeah, and so this was enough for me because it showed me, the breakdown of simplicity all the way to an advanced style that I didn't even understand.
So that says 71 to 82.
Yeah.
So in 1971, Phase 2 was doing styles like that.
Yep.
From 71 to 82. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's why, he's known for so much more because he did all four elements.
Right.
But I'd like to say that, arrows, connections, the soul of the piece was what he created. Before that, it was outline tags and somewhat of just a thicker way of doing your signature.
Right.
But he created this style that you see, and he's the one that pioneered it into what the next generation of subway artists were doing. The Dezes,
Right.
Schemes, and everybody, all the great people, the Scenes, everyone. They all took a page from his book.
And then when did he come up to Hawaii?
So he came in 88.
88.
Yeah. And, we can pop up the flyer for a reference. But he did an art show, and Size was already talking to him.
Right.
And so Size invited me to do like a canvas for it. And we just got introduced to what was called the Phantom Cap.
Okay.
And definitely shouts out to Estria.
Right.
Because without him, we wouldn't have had that cap and all the techniques that came along with it.
Yeah.
Estria played a pivotal role in our advancement.
Right.
And
he introduced the Phantom Cap to Hawaii? Is that it? Or he got the first?
Yeah, so he introduced it, from my understanding, to Size and Animate.
Wow.
Yeah, and I believe...
So real quick, explain to us caps or spray tips.
Oh, so the spray tip that we're talking about is it's a white tip, and it was the first cap that was introduced back then outside of the stock cap
Right.
that could create a no overspray line, and that could create like what would a stenciling effect. It could do a lot of what we call cutting back or cutting a line in half, and making the lines thinner and all
Right,
that
right,
stuff.
right.
So that was a pivotal change in controlling the spray can
Okay.
and the output to be able to create all different types of effects.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where when we met, when I first finally got to meet FaZe,
Right.
it was like, okay, hey, good, good to meet you. And even though we pen pal, we weren't
Right.
like the best of
Yeah.
friends.
Well, he came down for an art show then.
Yeah,
So Phase 2 had an art show in Hawaii?
yeah, at the campus center ballroom.
Just him.
Yep, just him.
And then you got a piece in there.
Yeah, the most hideous piece, but yeah.
Where's that picture?
I think I have it. You can see. I'm not afraid of showing my history.
So he flew. So Size flew him down. Or he flew down on his own, and Size kind of set up everything.
So Joe Talkington, he was an activist back in the
Okay.
day, and I think Mari from Revolution
Oh, nice.
Books. Revolution Books is the heart of it
Yeah.
all back then.
Right.
They have to have acknowledgement,
Right,
and helping
yeah.
it cultivate and move forward. Yeah. So basically, Size asked me to do a canvas, and then I did it, and then I finally got to meet FaZe.
Right.
The event happened. No one understood what that was.
Right.
Really. It was.
This is
just-
87.
Yeah. 88.
88.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was something that I think like was too advanced for us.
I could see that.
He was already on like Egyptian or Kemetic
Right.
inclusion into his styles. It was it was like breaking apart the letter structure and more of like just his own interpretation. So I was expecting to see what was in the book.
Right.
And that was nothing what he presented. It was like beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
But it also inspiring at the same time. And then I don't know why Size didn't paint with us, but FaZe just asked me to paint.
Okay.
And he was completing a piece at Roosevelt
Oh,
High
okay.
School. And the world knows about this piece.
Right.
And he asked me, hey, there's a wall right here. I don't think I was supposed to paint it, but I
Right.
said, I'm not going to turn down the opportunity.
Yeah.
And from that point on, that's when like the real mentorship started to happen. Yeah. But I definitely want to start and kind of roll back with Size, because Size definitely was a pivotal part of me understanding
Right.
brush structure.
Right.
Yeah. There's different things that FaZe taught me, but Size taught me the bar structure I needed to understand to make my piece look
Right.
like it's all one style.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the bar structure again?
So it's basically like if you're going to have a thick line or thick part of your letter to find and a thin part, then you got to have thin and thick in each letter. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a balance. You can't have like a big letter, a big barred letter, and then a skinny letter, and then a big bar. It just doesn't look right.
Right.
So and if you take a look at all the Subway art pieces and even FaZe's old pieces, like you'll see the bar structure in there. It's just something that they didn't call it that.
Right.
They probably had their own way of saying it, but with the straight letters that they did, everything was uniform. Then
Right.
In symmetry. Yeah.
Right.
And so Size was also a pivotal person to teach me about music.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
He kept me in the loop about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And because he was already DJing and doing beats, and he was just ahead of his time.
He was, yeah, and still
He still is. I
Yeah.
mean, the guy's still making amazing stuff, and like that's my brother.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get as much acknowledgement as he should.
Right.
And if everyone, I hope that he comes.
Yes.
And
He knows what's up.
yeah,
He knows what's up.
He will.
Yeah.
But I'd like him to tell his story,
Right.
because that
Definitely.
guy is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I think when we'll fast track to 93.
Okay.
Yeah. You know,
So this whole time, Phase 2's been mentoring you.
yeah.
Yeah.
More.
Oh, real quick. Let's go back to the Roosevelt Wall, and he said, "Oh, you can paint here."
Yeah.
Like that story, real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So without hesitation,
Yeah.
I painted and, you know, I did my East piece
Right,
there.
right.
Yeah. And, you know, he it was what it was.
It was what it was. What was his reaction to that?
He was like, well, you know, that's cool. You
Okay,
know,
yeah.
It's about as much of a compliment as
Right.
you could give. It was just a public piece. It
Yeah.
was, you know, but I was using, you know, sizes formulas.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's like, you know, it did have balance.
Right,
And everything.
right,
It just
right.
wasn't great. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Ho hum yawn. Yeah, this is cool. But
Yeah.
I think the brotherhood developed there.
Okay.
Yeah. And he knew that I wasn't coming from a certain kind of cloth,
Right.
which is important for him because if anyone who knows Phase 2, he doesn't let you in your circle,
Right.
in his circle, unless you have something in your personality that is connective to his and his
right,
ideology.
right.
So, you know, if I was some kind of arrogant person and, you know, I came in as like, yeah, I'm going to rock this piece.
Right.
And I did that, you know, he probably would have never talked to me
Yeah.
again. But, you know, I just did my thing and, you know, he knew I was growing and learning.
Right.
So, you know, then going into 1993, I was approached by Matt Young and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg were coming.
Wow.
So I said, well, would you like to do some like artwork on stage?
Right.
So me and my boy Chaos, he's a super fly tattoo artist,
Right.
bonsai, and he works with Catch too. So
Right.
He was like my right hand man in making all the stage art.
Wow.
And we made the stage art, and while we were doing the sound check, this writer from the Source magazine came up and said, "Oh, you know, can I do an interview? You did the artwork. Can I know a little bit more?" And then once I started to talk to him about Phase 2 and everything, he was like, "Oh man, this is amazing. Like we've got to, you know,
Right.
we've got to cover this in the Hawaii's Live, yo." Even though it was about Dr. Dre,
Right.
they put my piece on the bottom that I did with Phase on the bottom of the article. And that for me was like really special.
Yeah.
You know, the part that was disappointing was they didn't put in the mention that Chaos was a part of that.
Right.
It was a big part of
Yeah.
that. So, you know.
Shout out to Chaos.
Yeah, definitely. And so that happens. I don't hear back. Rocksteady crew, I hear is about to come to the island.
Okay. This was
94.
94.
Early 94.
Right.
Yeah. So we're jumping so fast. I gotta say that Phase 2
Right.
and the whole Street Songs thing happened
Yeah.
in 93.
Okay.
Yeah. So John Irvelino, James Coles, Music Valley Packs in the mix. They contracted me to do an album cover.
Right.
And their promo stuff. And they asked me, "Oh, who could we have for you to do a big mural with
Right.
locally?" And I said, "Do you really want the guy? You're going to get Phase 2."
Wow. He was there. He was living on the island at the time?
No, he was
Oh.
he was in New York.
Okay,
so
okay.
they flew him down. They
Nice.
said the contingency is you have to put him up.
Right.
So we put him up at my place, and it was interesting because my mother, you know, she was Japanese.
Yeah.
And the culture shock was real. And she was like, "Are you sure?" You know. you want this?"
Right.
But you know, luckily he was into kung fu movies, and so
Nice.
So that bond became family.
That's
And
awesome.
We created this really long piece in at Kalani High School.
Okay.
And we already, you know, the precursor to that was we were, you know, Catch, animate, size. We're all already painting there.
Right.
Yeah. So what I think when we did that, they were also asking, "Oh, can you do promo stuff?" So
Right.
the amazing part was while Phase 2 was here, he did 2 of his infamous New York style flyers that he used to
Ooh,
do,
yeah.
do for parties in the Bronx. We're talking about like in the 70s, right? And so he took that format and he did one for James Ervelino. Definitely got to shout that guy out because without him, like he's a big part of it. Too,
Right.
And you know, without that component, I would have never got to spend time with Phase for like over a year.
Right.
And it was just an amazing experience for me to be able to learn from him. Other people learned from him too. A lot of the AOI from Farrington.
Okay. Who's at AOI at that time?
Skid, Craze, Alert, Shy. Those are the 4 I was doing. There's others too.
Right.
Arez, yeah. But they were all recipients of his style. But who was hanging out with me the most and actually drawing with me was Skid.
Okay.
DJ Skid.
Shout out to Skid.
Yeah.
My boy.
He can say that he learned from Phase because we were all in the lab and
just those names of those writers there, I can see that creating a ripple effect throughout Hawaii graffiti. Yeah. Rather if the next generations know it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I definitely could see the ripple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The domino of Phases to U size, AOI, all that stuff, kind of trickling down to Hawaii style.
Oh, and pivotal piece, if we're gonna insert now, is when Slick was always dope.
Yeah,
it's always dope. I used to see glimpses of his stuff too, and when he started to give like photos to Crush, and those photos started circulating here, it blew my mind in the late 80s and 90s, late 80s, 90s. I was like, what is he doing?
Right.
And that's at the same time where that was a little bit before we learned the Phantom Cap.
Okay.
So once we understood that's what you could do with the Phantom Cap, there's just things that I just like. I didn't copy his exact things, but the shading styles, everything like.
But he showed it was possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Slick is someone that Phase 2 has told me personally that he pioneered this whole entire evolution of what's possible with the spray can.
Wow.
And I've let Slick know that too.
Yeah.
But definitely Slick, he's beyond words. And I hope one day he goes and does the things that he used to do.
Yeah.
Back in the day, because all I have is photos and say, no, this is Slick. Don't underestimate what the guy can do just because he's doing LA hands and stuff. This guy, if this guy comes out the woodwork, he's gonna bring an arsenal.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be game over. He's capable of that. And also I like to, because there's so many people that I want to shout out.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Prime. First thing I saw of Prime's was on Kapiolani Boulevard. Okay. It was between the Bank of Hawaii and what would be the neighboring business there.
Right.
But it was an alleyway. It was an incomplete Prime piece, but the style was there. And I was like, who is this guy, And later in my high school years, I think there was some kind of hip-hop reunion where he
right.
like artwork for, and like that just inspired me to the utmost point. Like Prime's artwork was like, in terms of the characters, it was like something that I blueprinted my style off of too.
Wow.
Yeah. So definitely shout out to Prime, what he's done for the community too, and everything.
Definitely, yeah.
And
he continues to do with the community.
Yeah, he's amazing. That guy is definitely, taken the passion for writing culture and translate it to the passion, and how can he use this as a gift to give to the community and use it as an educational piece too.
Yeah.
So like it's a definitely patterned in a different way. My ability to give my gift out to the community and include education in a different way. Yeah.
Let's go back to when you had your picture in the source. Okay. He said that Rocksteady contacted you off that picture?
Yeah. So Rocksteady Crew.
And that was 94. No, is it 94?
Yeah, 94. Yeah. FaZe had left already.
Right.
And I had gotten a call on my home phone that had an answering machine. And during that time, I picked it up, and I had people joking around.
Right.
I picked it up, and then I hear this guy go, "Oh, yo, this is Crazy Legs from Rocksteady Crew." I paused, and I was like, "Okay, who is this?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yo, this is Legs, Rocksteady Crew." And I said third time, I was like, he goes, "No, seriously, this is Crazy Legs from Rocksteady Crew." I was like, "Oh, dang." And he goes, and then the part that made it snap into place where I was like, okay, this guy is really the person who did the Source Magazine interview his name was Louis Romaine, and he was a writer, for the Source Magazine. And Crazy Legs said, "I got your number from Louis Romaine." I was like, okay, this is legit. This is legit. I was like, dang, okay, well, wow, this is you caught me off guard here.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, man, we're coming down. A promoter is flying us down, and wanted to meet you and build with you. We saw that you're a student of Phase 2, and they were excited, and okay, cool. And definitely, this is the second person who's not really into hip hop, but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had one big part of my journey with New York hip hop is Joe Ho, Mystical Sounds production.
Yeah. Shout out to Joe.
He's the one that brought down Crazy Legs.
Okay, there you go.
Mr. Wiggles, Miss Master Mike, Apollo, Qbert, P Kid. He brought them down for a Rocksteady show.
Where was this show at? Do you remember?
This show was at the Source at Puck's Alley.
And before that, there was no Rocksteady in Hawaii.
No.
Okay.
No, there was no.
Right.
So the person, so I met Legs when they came here at a workshop, and he said, "Oh, come down to the Source, and we'll talk a little bit."
Right.
That's when I met Mr. Wiggles.
Wow.
Mr. Wiggles, just as a history, he used to write REK, REK, and he was taught by Phase 2 as well.
Wow, crazy.
So when he said, "So I heard that you were, student of Phase," and he said, "Yeah," and I showed him. He's like, "You're definitely a student of Phase." He goes, "No question." He goes, like, I think on the third day, because they were kind of vibing me out.
Right.
On the third and final day, they said, we got a newest member of Rocksteady Crew. His name is East, and come up. And I
did you know they were gonna invite you to Rocksteady?
No.
Oh,
I just came. Like I didn't know. I just was like, oh I'm not gonna miss a chance to see them. Yeah. So, like, seeing them on like The Grind on MTV.
Yeah.
Legendary performance there. Just like iconic people that I grew up loving, like even in Beach Street, like Rocksteady was always my favorite. And so they put me down.
Wow.
And, that Source Magazine article, I guess they were so backlogged it didn't come out yet. So right in July, Legs goes, "Yo," he calls me. He's like, "I need you to do the Rocksteady anniversary art."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, how long do I have?" "Tomorrow morning." Which kind of was like the trend after.
Right.
He's letting me know that everything needs to be done yesterday. So I got it done, and I mailed it out. And he was like, okay, well, we're gonna figure out a way to get you out.
Yeah.
So I went to my first Rocksteady crew anniversary.
Ooh, wow. What year was that?
That was in 1994.
94.
Yep.
What anniversary? What number anniversary was that?
17.
17.
Yep, 17. And this was when it was still at Happy Warrior Park on
Okay.
98th in Amsterdam, which was Rocksteady Crew
Right.
Park, aka. And it was amazing because I went there for the first time, and I went with Omega.
Right.
And Omega really connected with the Bay Area.
Right.
Cats out there. So, like, I was kind of just venturing and seeing everything in my own lens, but just seeing, like, Cold Crush Brothers on stage.
Yeah.
Wearing my shirt that I made, like, and
You still got that shirt?
yeah, I still got
Can
that.
bust it out real quick?
Yeah.
So you were the artist for how many of the Rocksteady reunions?
Oh gosh, I would say at least 11 or 12.
Ooh.
It's there was a lot.
So this is your first one.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh, that's
This
so
is the
epic.
first one.
Nice. Established 78, Rocksteady anniversary, 17th.
Yeah. Well, what's even more cool, or equally as cool, is just historically these brands.
Yeah. Record label G Street, Hollywood Basic, Tommy Boy Loud, 555 Soul, Vibe Source. Look at that. Rocksteady Park, Wild Pitch.
Yep. So this whole this whole thing just kind of, it was interesting enough. There's so many things that happened on that first year.
Right.
I'll start with Mr. Wiggles. So Mr. Wiggles told me, I put you in the crew, but you're going to have to ask Doze if you got a battle in now.
Ooh.
So Doze was painting on the racquetball court.
Right.
And I waited till he came down, and this is the most nerve-wracking because I know who Doze is
Right,
at this
right.
point. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose.
Yeah.
But he flipped through my stuff, and he was like, "There's no need to battle. You're qualified." And I was like, oh, okay. But that wasn't good enough for Wiggles.
Okay.
So I had to go to Hunts Point in the Bronx.
Wow.
And I had to do a peace book session with Tat's crew,
Oh.
where they told me that, we're going to get down and do Black Book. And Wiggles put it on me and said, look, this cat is phase 2 student. He can go off the top without a pencil.
Right.
So I had to do like a super burner, like right there in front
Right.
of Tat's crew. And I'm like, man, you're really putting me through like the unofficial battle.
Yeah.
And everywhere we went during the Rocksteady anniversary at 98th in Amsterdam, he was like telling me to drop it in front of other people. And I had to just go on site. So I missed a lot of the event because of that.
You're earning your chops.
Yeah, so I had to earn my respect. But that was one amazing part of it.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and my reward was that him and Mr. Freeze said, okay, we're going to take you to a sneaker store, and we're going to get you, fitted for some classic sneakers. And I thought, okay, well, I see superstars.
Yeah.
But I gotta show you. So this pair right here, is from Jumans, and this is in the Bronx, and this is the original. These are made in France.
Damn.
Yeah,
With the fat laces.
Yeah, and I went to Fordham Road, took the 6 train on the Fordham Road, and I got these laces from the original places where they used to sell those laces, where they still had them, and they were the wrapping around them were all yellow. So they were the original laces from way back in the day. So they took me to the places to get my original pair. This pair was the only size that still doesn't fit me, but I squeezed into them and killed my foot.
Yeah.
They're 10 and a halves. They don't fit, and then I might as well show the other one.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, that's from New York. And bringing it back, there's 2 shoes that B-Boys used to rock. And before they would wear pro keds, and before that they would be wearing like Playboys, and other more dressy shoes, right? British Walkers and stuff. So the Puma Clydes are from the Waipahu Sporting Goods store, which ties it all back. That is a fishing store,
right?
Because I used to go to Wahiawa Reservoir and catch tukaneri. So I went there and I was like, wait a minute, you guys have this, and
they have Clydes.
This pair right here is the original with the serial numbers on the tongue.
Ooh.
And so they're both considered 70s, original
right.
70s pairs. And that's just for me, I'm planning on trying to find a good home for them because, I'd rather them be in a safe place at this point. So, maybe a museum or something. Yeah. Just to, maybe Cavis next thing we'll do a museum archive.
Oh,
yeah,
that'd be crazy.
Because there's so much important history that you're collecting now. I think like it's important to try to find that space too.
True
for our culture. Yeah, and I think as far as the Rocksteady anniversaries were concerned, just being able to go there where there's people doing black books, people doing ciphers and rhyming.
Yeah.
B-boy battles.
Missed that, yes.
And, people you looked up to, Funky 4+1, Cold Crush Brothers, like they're on stage and they're singing they're doing their whole, like their whole thing. And I'm in the midst of it. And to experience that was just one small glimpse into what it kind of looked like
back in the day.
70s, 80s, right? And I'm just really fortunate because that was my blueprint going into the 90s doing events here.
Right.
Yeah, so, did a lot of events here, and I tried to bring that, all elements into
and
that.
did they let you recruit people was there a Rocksteady Hawaii chapter after that once you got in?
Yeah, so as soon as I came to New York, and that's the part where, New Yorkers at that time, I guess maybe hip-hop New Yorkers at that time, they like to test you.
Of course.
So I came up, I took, I did my whole thing with Rocksteady, and as I was leaving, Legs said, start a chapter.
Wow.
So I came down, and we were doing events at the Attic.
Right.
Yeah, there was Attic 1 in Kakako, and then the Attic 2 was where ABC pulled up.
Okay.
And the first two that I recruited was Leonard and I think Richard.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Shout out to Richard and Leonard.
Yeah, Radical R, and for some reason I can't remember Leonard's b-boy name. I don't know, but I know that Legs gave him a name called Stylin.
Right. Oh, so it was okay. I was gonna say Stylin, but Legs gave him that name.
Yeah, and also Skilroy was Pretty Boy Roy.
Okay.
Until Legs said Skilroy.
Oh.
Like Kilroy, but Skilroy.
I can see him being Pretty Boy though. Yes, I mean he looks still so young right now, still killing it. Oh, so the first one was Leonard, Richard, and then after that was, can you name all of them? The official.
Yeah. So the first two was them, and then from that point, the next one was Roy, Skilroy, and then after that there was a lot of the I guess the third, or I should say the 90s generation of Supreme Team.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all Kalihi guys.
Right.
Jannard, of Desmond's, Leonard's son, Desmond.
Yeah. Shout out to Des.
Yep, Desmond, definitely a legend. And, a lot of the ABC.
Right.
Roland,
shout out to Ro.
And extensions went, we recruited, I believe his name was Kid Quick, Andy.
Yeah, Andy.
SWAT team.
Yep, SWAT team.
Yeah, SWAT team. And then from there, we recruited some other guys too. It just started to get massive at that point.
Right.
And then I would say right around when Kenny Flowmaster, Honey Rockwell, and Wiggles came back.
Okay. So Ken Swift.
Yep, Ken Swift. They came back. I believe that was somewhere around 97,
Right.
because they just started Seven Gems.
Okay.
They did a Hawaii Rocksteady versus New York Rocksteady at the Source.
Okay.
Yeah, and that went global. That
Right.
video went global. And during that part, that's when leadership shifted from me to Leonard as a b-boy,
Right.
leading a b-boy crew.
Okay.
So, and I was totally okay with that.
Right.
Leonard and I, have done prior to that a lot of jams together.
Right.
And that guy is just totally dedicated and devoted.
Yeah.
And I have to give them their
Yes.
flowers because, Leonard and Desmond got to travel like the world as a father and son from our islands, from Kalihi.
Right.
And they did it big.
Yeah.
Did it big. And, they put, as far as the B-boys, they put, Hawaii on the map.
Yeah.
They did their thing in a way where, it's so rare to be able to travel with your son.
Yeah.
And it's so rare for your son to be so gifted.
Yes.
So just that alone, and a lot of other people too. My house was the hub for any Rocksteady member that stayed. So like Flowmaster stayed there. One in specific was Wiggles during that 2007.
Right.
Which the reason he is special is because Sweepy was still here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sweepy was 808 Giants.
Right.
So 808 Giants, and Sweepy, he was like trying to come up as an MC.
Right.
And I told him, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that your dancing is amazing.
Right.
Amazing. Like if I was to have to measure it, your dancing surpasses your MC skills. So Wiggles came. I sat them down in a room together. Sweepy's originally from the Bronx.
Right.
So they had a Bronx talk, and that's when Sweepy battled in immediately after Wiggles. I think it was actually the next day.
Right.
Because it was a 2-day event. So Wiggles battled Sweepy to get in. And in the same moment, Jetta's brother, I believe his name is Ed.
Right.
He became Rocksteady.
Oh,
too.
crazy.
Yeah, because Ed had like this really old school LA kind of popping style.
Right.
Which Wiggles loved. So he put him on, and they got to travel the world. Sweepy did his thing. You know?
Definitely. Well, Sweepy, how did he end up in Hawaii, real quick?
That I have no idea.
Oh, wait, you mentioned 808 Giants, or something I really wanted to get into. Okay. So 808 Giants, when you handed over Rocksteady to Leonard, then you created 808 Giants? Or was that like an overlap thing?
Okay, so this 808 Giants was created by two people.
Okay.
Myself and Dap.
Right on.
And
Shout out Dap.
Yeah, Dap 4. And he and I were trying to figure out how we can make a crew that would represent the islands, not so much like to be internally battling with people, but more so how can we rep it like as outward, yeah. So 808 Giants was formed by me creating Giants and him saying 808. And we tied it together, and we're like, okay. I said, I guess that kind of works, like without me knowing, because like San Francisco Giants, right?
Yeah.
And my birthplace, and 808.
808, yeah.
And so the two words together became 808 Giants.
Sick.
And I would say prior to Phase coming here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So like 90...
Early 93.
Oh, wow. 808 Giants was there before Rocksteady.
Yeah.
Before. And Giants was an old company that you created.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, before Streetwear, before any of that that verbiage came in. Like you had a clothing company you created called Giants.
Yeah. And that was, I remember clearly because I was still going to HCC to do art.
Right.
So I was working also at GEMS full time in the advertising department. And I was already doing graphics.
Right.
And so I knew because I was utilizing the facility.
Yeah.
I've make my screens.
I've done that many times at many jobs.
Yeah.
Utilize the facility.
Yeah. I brought my own stuff.
Printers, Xerox machine.
Yeah.
Office supplies. But speaking of that Giants, let's go show that shirt you guys did I think for HIC. Yeah. Right? You and FaZe did, which I think is I had to fit that in here because that was done in what do you remember what it was?
This was done in 93.
And look how vibrant. I mean, you said it was done not on plastisol or oil base. It's water.
I think it might be. It
Those
might be
colors is popping.
It could be oil, but I know that back then it was. There was definitely water base was big.
Yeah.
So, and the part that is makes me feel like it is water based is that it's so thin.
Yeah.
It's not.
And the oil is thick and cracks real easy.
Yeah.
The water maybe is more malleable.
Yeah.
But that character, your character, FaZe's letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that kind of like box frame kind of style was what FaZe was into. Yeah. And he also, this is kind of like what he was doing during the late 80s and 90s era. Yeah. So this is a gift to me.
That's sick.
Yeah. And
so what does it say?
So without using curse words.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying because I'm trying to think about the people out there. Like, what is that? I mean, it's beautiful, but yeah.
So here's his philosophy. FaZe's philosophy is, I would always, when he was in his room at our place, I would always go, what does this say? What does this say? What does this say? What does this say? And one day he just looked at me and he goes, without the curse words, he was like, who cares what it says? and I said, well, for me, I'm trying to understand it, and he was like, that's when I learned that I didn't understand his ideals. And he said, feel it. Feel the spirit of the piece. It doesn't matter what it says. And he's like, take a look. Okay, this clearly says something, right? He goes, but take a look at this. This clearly may say nothing, but how does it make you feel? So he made me tap into a different sensory when I'm observing like pieces that aren't legible or are complex. So to answer your question, that says nothing.
But it says a lot.
Yeah, it says a lot because of the history and the his experiences all behind it. And he's kind of giving the viewer the interpretation of creating that interpretation. Right. So,
all right on East 3. I mean, we could go. There's so many other things I would love to go into, like your whole design work. Real quick, you worked with legends, Qbert. You did Sound Bombing, Common, Wake Up Show. You did stuff for Paulski, Mighty Four.
Kid Robot.
Kid Robot. You had a toy. I think it was one of the first guys to have a designer toy from Hawaii. I mean, is anything you want to just mention real quick? You know what I mean? Because even that, we could go off to like your influence in streetwear and design. There's like a whole nother episode, but real quick in a nutshell, anything of that you want to mention, like because it's part of hip hop, all those stuff you did for Qbert and the Scratch Pickles and Common and stuff like that.
I think, if I missed anyone, I apologize.
Right.
I hope that if we do a part 2, I'll definitely remember.
Yeah, no, good.
But, the number one thing I'd like to say to the community is that I love the way that people in the culture now are embracing where they're from versus sounding like someone else, or versus painting like someone else, or versus, replicating something, and it took several generations to get there, and this is really important to the kids because they adapt to culture, and we have to, I think, as the older, people in the scene, we have to tell them and show them and educate them that this is, the more you're you and just being a local boy, the more important it's going to be and more value that the other people from around the scene, around the world, are going to embrace you. Yeah. And embrace our culture and how we integrated the arts into our culture first versus looking towards another trend. How do we develop within, and keep the slippers and board shorts on, keep our language. We don't need to sound like this or that, like the most important thing is just for us to be ourselves and find hip hop that way. And as well as all the other influences that are out there that are so damaging, with the rap industry and, the kind of content that they have and the other cultures that come in here. Number one culture should be about us and how we live together and being Pono.
Right.
Anything else should just assimilate under that umbrella, not anywhere else. We need to stop the violence out here. We need to stop, the culture of violence. It's just getting out of hand. And a lot of that is accompanied by negative music and ideology.
Right.
And so for me, hip hop has grown. If I was still doing what I did and being who I was, it wouldn't be something that would be interesting to me.
Right.
So we always have to evolve. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing.
Oh, awesome. Right on. Thank you to East 3 for joining us here at PBS Hawaii. ALANUI MELE, Hawaiʻi Hip-Hop History on PBS Hawaii. I'm your host, Kavita Catalyst. Big up. Give thanks. Peace.